Hello friends, how are you all? I hope you're doing great and taking care of yourself. Today we are coming to our end video for Docker series, which is Docker fundamentals for beginners, and today we are going to talk about one important topic called as a Docker compose. I will try my best to break this into the simplest way as possible. Let's start with answering a basic question where you have multiple services running like front end, back end, cache, etc. For running all these services, you need to run each container manually. But have you thought that just a single command can bring up these services up as well as can bring up these services down? To answer that question is what today's video, which is Docker Compose. So let's quickly break down into nuts and bolts of it. So friends, let's break down what is Docker Compose from a theoretical perspective, and then we will be having a hands-on session. So let's first understand what is Docker Compose. So Docker Compose is like a master controller for handling the multiple containers. It allows you to configure and manage them together as a single application using one docker-compose.yml file. Think of Composer as a conductor that makes everyone work together. How it works? It's very simple. You do not need to summarize anything. We will go through hands-on session. So you have something called as a services in which you will be defining your containers. So I have a web container, I have a DB container, and I have already an image of my front end application, which is a web-based application called as my app, and the database which I'm using is a Postgres. Then what are the commands you should know in order to run a Docker Compose? So first of all, it is a Docker Compose up minus D build. Second is the Docker Compose start. If you want to stop all the containers, you can use Docker Compose stop. If you want to restart all the services in your application, which is front end, back end, database, cache, etc., you can use Docker Compose restart. You can also use to list Docker Compose PS, Docker Compose logs, to view the logs of those containers. And finally, if you want to bring down all services of your application together, then you have something called as a Docker Compose down. So what services in Docker Compose means? Doc the service is an ingredient list plus a recipe of the container. What that means: which image to use, which ports to expose, which volumes to mount, which environment variables to set, how it connects to the other services. Think of like this: the compose is the manager and the services are the team members. So manager or a lead has the control to manage the team, which is nothing but a member team members, right, in a team. So that's what is a simple breakdown of a Docker Compose. Now, without much further delay, let's get into the hands-on session of Docker Compose. So friends, let's quickly drill down into the docker-compose.yml. As you can see on the screen, I have declared services, and in that I am basically creating a container which is having the latest Nginx image, and I am exposing my local port, local computer port 8080 to the container port 80. The interesting part of this docker-compose.yml is the volume part, where I have basically created an index.html. In that I have just written hello from nginx running in a Docker Compose. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically copying my index.html to the and getting it replaced with the default nginx web page. Remember, whenever we launch the nginx on the local host 8080, we basically get welcome to the nginx, but in this case it will be getting overridden. That web index.html or web page will be get overridden with my define index.html. So without much further delay, let's get into the hands-on session of Docker Compose. So I have already logged into my Docker desktop, and you can see, if I type uh, docker compose ps, I oh sorry for the typo error, docker compose ps, I don't have anything running right now. So in order to execute this, has also, you can see there is no image. If I go to the containers, there is no container running. Now I'm going to use a simple command, docker compose up, to pull the image and then start my container with the nginx image. So all I'm going to do is docker compose up. At the same time, let me open another terminal here, and we will type docker docker. Okay, so as I type docker ps, I see the container is being created 8 seconds ago. And if I type docker compose uh, ps, you will no configuration file provided. Okay, the nginx image is created, as well as the container is up in running. And you can see here, when I go here, you can see all this running. Okay, now let's quickly go to the Google Chrome and type our magic localhost thing, which I would have ordered when. Okay, one sec, let me bring up that page quickly. Properties. I will go to Windows 10. I will select Chrome. Let me quickly select Docker desktop. Why my page is not coming? Let me quickly showcase you that as well. Okay. Okay, so now if you see, it is showing hello from nginx running in docker compose. Remember, when we launch the nginx, it will say welcome to nginx, but this is now replaced with my index.html page. So that's how you can quickly bring up multiple containers by executing one simple command called as a docker compose up. Now let's quickly bring down our compose. So for that, what I need to do here is go to the docker terminal. Okay, and I'm going to just type here docker compose down. What happened? 1 minute. Why am I not in the docker folder? Docker compose stop. Hmm. Let me quickly go to my folder. One sec. cd paste. I am docker now. Docker compose, yes. Okay, so if I type docker compose ps, you will see the name, the image, the command, the 3 minutes it has been, and you see here the port also. So now let me type docker compose down. The moment I type this, it will start bringing my container down. You can see here docker compose nginx stopping. So with one command you can stop the multiple containers. With one command you can bring up all the containers up. So if I do now docker compose ps, it will not have anything. If I do docker ps, it does not has a container id because everything is removed. So you see here the container, the docker, everything is removed. So that's how with a simple docker compose command you can bring up multiple services or a multiple containers. You can stop multiple containers at one start. You can restart also. So that's how the docker compose is useful in your day-to-day thing. So when you want to build a small things on a development environment, front end, back end, cache, etc., use docker component, docker compose. Why to create or execute the manual docker build command, docker run command to run a containers, docker stop to stop the containers, etc., and docker rm to remove the container image. So with a docker compose you can do all these things with in a few seconds. I hope this video was helpful and gave you an idea of how to use a docker compose in your day-to-day day-to-day development work. If you're building or restarting multiple containers or stopping multiple containers, creating multiple services in your lower environment. If you find this video was really helpful, do not forget it to share with your friends who are looking to get themselves familiar with a docker concept. Until then, take care. Bye bye.